Was an angry Nigerian senator, I should say, as angry lawmakers demanded the recruitment of more soldiers and police officers in order to stop the approach of Boko Haram fighters towards the country's capital. This comes in the wake of Niger State Governor Abubakar Bello's disclosure that the terrorist group had claimed territory and hoisted its flag in a local government in the state, which is less than 2 hours by road to Abuja, the country's capital. Arise political editor Samna Sambu reports.
Our country is bleeding. People are in poverty. There's no food. People are hungry. Insecurity is threatening us. We cannot pretend. It's better we're not here. People die.
An emotional Senator Smart Adeyemi crying over the worsening insecurity in Nigeria. Senator Mohammed Sani Musa, in a motion with chilling details, had informed the Senate about the sack of many communities by Boko Haram and bandits in Shiroro, Munya, and other areas of Niger State, an hour away from the nation's capital, Abuja. The terrorists also hoisted their flag.
I can authoritatively confirm that the Boko Haram terrorists have mounted their flags in many of the villages they have captured, such as Aure, Alawa, and Magami. Inhabitants of these war-torn parts of the states have been abandoned and left to their fates.
The lawmakers took turns to express their outrage over killings across the country, seizure of towns, and warned that except insecurity is tackled, Boko Haram's advancement to Abuja could make things worse for Nigeria. They want more recruitment into the armed forces and procurement of arms.
I'm not convinced Mr. President is even aware of everything that is happening. We need to be able to tell our constituents that we met with the Commander-in-Chief. Apart from recruitment, mass recruitment into our armed forces and the police that will happen now, we should invite those that can help us to fight this warfare.
If you look at the anatomy of FCT as a contiguous territory to Niger State, there are definitely safe haven that is a large swath that these insurgents and bandits can actually occupy.
We cannot continue to allow Boko Haram to mount flags in Nigerian territory. What is our army doing?
Direct for the establishment of a permanent military and police command bases at the axis adjoining Shiroro and Rafi local government areas, respectively. Direct the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and NEMA to, as a matter of national emergency, provide relief materials and medical support team to the victims immediately.
One former governor, who is now a senator, is urging state governors not to lament, but to re-engage communities on how to secure their areas as they await federal help.
The most important thing to do is to emphasize very much on community policing, because during our own time, we normally have a regular security meeting with traditional institutions, the police, the army, the Air Force, where they are available.
The senators then resolved to meet with President Muhammadu Buhari and military service chiefs. They also asked the executive to submit a supplementary budget for recruitment and purchase of arms. Many of these senators are also angry that despite previous resolutions reached by the Senate and even the House of Representatives, a lot of such resolutions remain unimplemented by the federal government. They are now calling for more actions, or else the National Assembly will be shut down, since the executive thinks that not much is being done by these lawmakers to warrant their resolutions being implemented. Somna Sambu, Arise News.
All right, welcome back. Let's chat in this Tundu.
Well, it's obviously come to the point where it's gone beyond party affiliation. That emotional outburst from Senator Smart Adeyemi of APC Kogi State proves that. Yesterday's outburst by Governor Sani Bello proves that. They are completely at their wits' end, and at this point, they don't care who knows it. And I find it reassuring to know that at least some people can see the whole country is on fire. We're all getting singed, as in some people can actually see and react appropriately. However, the Senate, their resolution that they want to meet with the President and Chief of Staff, you'll recall, Dr. Abati, you rather cynically burst my bubble. When I was convinced that the president would meet with the House of Representatives, and you were right, I was wrong. He did not. So there's no way to compel him to take action. People are dying, blood has been spilled, there has been no reaction. So the tears of a senator are hardly likely to move the president. I'm sorry to say. I've really come to that way of thinking. I'm not holding out much hope in this regard. I think our only hope remains that some kind of action will be taken in the way the president has done, approaching the US for help. Hopefully that AFRICOM HQ idea that he had to move it from Germany closer to the theater of war, I'm holding out hope for that. I'm not holding out any hope that he will actually deign to visit the Senate, because in the past he has shown that he's unwilling to do so. And that too was about party considerations. You'll recall that the speaker initially informed Nigerians that he had agreed to come. But by the time the party got hold of him, he now changed his mind. We need to stop thinking along party lines. We have to stop that. True patriotism is fealty to our country, not to a party. The APC did not exist before 2013, for crying out loud. This is about Nigeria and Nigerians being killed in their hundreds. It has to stop. We're facing an emergency.
Well, I think you are right. The approach should be bipartisan, because nobody is safe until everyone is safe. And what we are saying is that the security situation in Nigeria affects all of us. First, it was the Northeast. Now, the Northwest is involved. The South is also not safe. Whether it's banditry or it's kidnapping or it's just plain open terrorism, as we have witnessed in the last decade. Now, and it's also good to see the members of the National Assembly expressing concern. Yesterday, it was not just the Senate that debated this particular crisis. A motion was put up in the Senate by Senator Musa of Sani Musa or APC, Niger. And he was asking for the need to deploy troops. Well, yes, very good idea. And we saw that passionate debate on the floor of the Senate. But it's not just about the deployment of troops. It's about the political will to tackle, to challenge the problem, to deal with the problem, and to provide the wherewithal that both the police and the military will need. They were talking about deployment and recruitment out of the concern that, look, effectively the soldiers we have, the policemen that we have in Nigeria, they are completely overstretched. So if recruitment is part of it, yes, fine. But they also need equipment. But government itself must have the political will. The Senate has resolved to summon the service chiefs, the Director General of the Nigeria Intelligence Agency, and other key government officials. Yes, maybe that will help. Now, at the same time yesterday, the House of Representatives was also asking that government should declare a state of emergency in the security sector. If you have in Zamfara State, 50 villages have been taken over by Boko Haram. In Niger State, 42 villages have been taken over. Flags are already flying. Boko Haram flags are flying all over the place. And as the governor of Niger State pointed out, Sani Bello, he says, look, Niger State, Kaure village is just 2 hours from Abuja, and that the federal capital territory could be overrun. We do not want to entertain the thought that the National Assembly members yesterday were concerned because of the fear that even the National Assembly itself could be overrun by Boko Haram. But out of genuine concern as representatives of the people. Now, you talked about President Buhari. Yes, President Buhari had a meeting yesterday, a virtual meeting with the Secretary of State of the United States, Anthony Blinken. And his major, request there was that the AFRICOM, that is the U.S. African Command, should be relocated from Kenny Barracks in Stuttgart, Germany, where it has been since 2007, back to Africa. Well, you recall that in 2007, only Uganda and Liberia supported the idea of the African Command. Many African countries said, oh, they didn't want AFRICOM anywhere in Africa. Liberia said, no, come and establish it in Liberia. That was why, the African Command, the U.S. African Command, was taken to Germany. But now it's interesting to see Nigeria that opposed the idea at the time, saying that, look, the U.S. should bring the African Command, particularly to come and address the challenge. One of the objectives of the African Command was, in fact, to deal with, to degrade and address the challenge of terrorism within the Gulf of Guinea. The Gulf of Guinea today remains a very troubled part of the world. And Africa, of course, is of strategic interest to the United States. So I hope that, apart from the Nigerian government, that other African countries will probably change their position with regard to AFRICOM being somewhere in Africa, given the security challenge, not just in Nigeria, but the whole of Africa. Right. But definitely, security remains a problem. James Doddridge, the British Minister for Africa, also had a meeting yesterday with Oscar Geoffrey Onyama, the British, the Nigerian Foreign Affairs Minister. And he was saying that, look, the security situation in Nigeria is complex, that it requires also a varied approach. Yeah. We hope that all of these conversations around the subject will help to find a path forward and, help us address the challenge. Because really, the situation is frightening, it is complex, it is disturbing, and for a government that made security as one of its flagship projects, I think President Buhari himself should be personally embarrassed by the fact that he has not been able to make a difference. And if the National Assembly is asking for an audience with him, I think he should grant it. What is that passage in the Bible about the multitude of counsel resulting in wisdom? You will know, Pastor Tundu.
Oh, speaking of counsels, Ayitophelic counsel is another one. All right. I mean, but it's very apt that this has come home to roost, and you can see the passion by Senator Smart Adeyemi. I might not totally agree with him in the past on everything, but on this I agree with him. And for me, the shocking part is the fact that a member of his political party said, "Are you in the PDP?" And I was ashamed to hear that. Isn't Nigeria burning enough for us to see beyond partisanship in this country? Is it still about political lines? Political parties can be made in any form, any fashion, any time. But Nigeria as a country is bigger than any political party. Before the APC or PDP, we had political parties. We had SDP, we had NRC, we had all sorts of political parties. When it comes to times of national crisis, everybody must become statesmen. And we must all rally around to look for solutions to the niggling problem of insecurity in our country. All of us, it takes a collective effort. Because it takes a village to raise a child. The child here is our dear country. And we must do everything to make it work. I'd also make a quick point. Bipartisanship should not be the order of the day. In the thick of the war, one of his greatest opposition was who President Lincoln Stanton used as the Secretary of War. Leading up to 62, Stanton was in the Democratic Party while Lincoln was a Republican. And Lincoln had to call in Stanton to be able to prudently manage the war, the American Civil War. So it goes beyond partisanship divide. It goes beyond political party divide. Senator Smart Adeyemi is Nigerian first before he's an APC member. And that was what he exemplified yesterday, crying for this country. It has gotten to a point where people cry as regards the security situation because lives are being lost every day. Rotus, what say you, my friend, this morning?
Okay. All
right. Yeah, Rotus, we're going straight to you. We're talking business.
Morning, Rufai. Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Doctor. How are you doing? Look, we continue the same theme. The United States Consulate, let's take a look at a crime warning for Lagos State that they put out from the U.S. Consulate. They essentially, there it is. So, alert, increased crime in Lagos, security alert, U.S. Consulate, Lagos. U.S. Consulate in Lagos has recently seen a notable increase in crime in Lagos. Reports of robberies, smash and grab on the roads by armed men have increased significantly, and look at this, on both Ikoyi and Victoria Island. Typically, men on a motorcycle, they emphasize that, will follow a vehicle until it stops at a traffic light or intervention, then approach the vehicle, present a weapon, and rob the occupants. Although most of the incidents happen at night, the U.S. Consulate General in Lagos has received reports of robberies taking place during daylight hours. And I have a video, we talked about that to prove it. Please remember to be aware of your surroundings, especially when driving at night. The following personal safety tips can help reduce your risk of becoming a victim. Keep your vehicle doors locked and windows rolled up at all times while driving, especially in traffic jams or traffic lights. Lagos State government within hours. Let's take a look at them. There's a video being shown here. Yep. Within hours of this being put out, they started rounding up bikes. This is Freedom Way in Lekki, I believe. Look at that truck. Look at the pile of bikes on the back of the truck. You can see the security forces. I think Rufai has said this. I think Tundu has said this. Doctor has said this. When we, the citizens, are talking about insecurity and robberies, they don't take notice. But the moment an international body puts out a notice, boom, they swoop down. And by the way, not to hold brief for any of these guys, not all the bike riders you see there are armed robbers, but unfortunately it is what it is. The bikes are what are used. Lagos State put a ban in place. They did not follow up with that ban. Rufai has mentioned this before. Go-Kada, Max NG, O-Ride were all put out of business. The ride-hailing bikes were put out of business because Lagos State that there were crimes that were being committed using bikes, and that's the reason why they were all chucked out. All these gentlemen you're seeing there now that are being, whose bikes are taken care of, they're taken away, they don't have a source of living. So this thing is almost circular now, because now they're going to be looking for work, and some of them might become desperate. When are we going? Oh, wait, okay, hang on, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's take a look at the robbery, which I know I talked about this a while back. This is broad daylight. This was either early last year. Look at that. In broad daylight, he comes with a cutlass, takes the guy's phone, he threatens him, seizes it, and then hops on the bike. I mean, the gentleman might as well as called the bike to carry him home, and everybody's just moving around like nothing's happened. I know I talked about this about a few months ago when it broke and was trending online. That's what the U.S. consulate is talking about. But this man isn't even in a car; he's just standing by. This is what we're facing. Just last week, we talked about Ikoyi under siege. Remember that viral video that came out where, and I admit, I said that it was class discrimination, but they were also talking about insecurity as well. So you have to think about the impact on investment. Lagos State is the commercial capital of Nigeria. If you're sitting in Shanghai or you're sitting in Moscow or London or whatever, and you're seeing all this, what do we think is going to happen when it comes to the impact on investment? Beyond seizing these bikes, there has to be a concerted effort on registering public vehicles in the state. I talked to someone just 2 days ago that entered quote-unquote one chance, that was robbed in a Sienna. Said it was in a Sienna. He went in the morning about 6:30 a.m. and he was robbed of his items. A young lady that was jogging on the Ikoyi Link Bridge, an unmanned vehicle came up and robbed her. So if my car, if you run my license plate, it is linked to Rotus. I wrote to Rodiri, but it's linked to Rotus. If something happens with my vehicle, it can be traced back to me. So the state has to follow up on this, because there's going to be ramifications. And with everything going on within the last 24 hours, from the Benue State governor to the senator of Kogi State, it's everywhere. It's cascading, and it's a really, really huge problem. But Lagos State really has to step this up, and I guess this is something that just has to be focused on, and we have to hear from the president at some point. At some point, he has to speak to people and can't keep going through Garbasheo and his other advisors. He has to put a state of emergency has to be called, because this is look, Total in Mozambique. We talked about this on the Global Business Report 2 days ago. Total's LNG project of $20 billion, which is the largest liquefied natural gas project in Africa, has been suspended indefinitely because of the militants and insecurity happening in Mozambique. So, I mean, it's just
very apt, Rutus. If you can hear me, there's a big holdback. Goodness me, I don't know what that's for. Very apt. You know, the funny thing, and the most important thing is, analysts and business analysts and investors in Shanghai are sitting down and are taking these reports about Lagos, and they're saying to invest or not to invest. And they look at the crime scene too in Accra, Ghana, and they say we'll probably go to Accra. I think Accra is a better option. A nation cannot develop where there's massive insecurity, and we keep saying this. You talked about the fact that how the nation of Mozambique, one of the poorest African nations, lost a major investment in Cabo Delgado because of terrorist attack. Do you know how much I will have injected to the African continent? Do you know how much I will have injected to the economy of Mozambique? And that is what is happening the same way in Lagos. Although, you see, the argument they are so quick to give is, oh, you make a lot of returns in Nigeria. You are assured 35% return on investment because it's a very high risk zone. But at the same time, you want your investment to be safe and secure. And there is no security to provide for that. Look at the Okada ban now they're just trying to effect. They let it loose. Are uniformed men not part of those that started the Okada business again when the ban started? They were the ones taking people around, using it to do business. So when you make a law for some, and uniformed men feel because they are uniformed men in quote, they can still pick up passengers and ride the bike and wear their uniform, then there's a problem because the law doesn't cut across all in the country. And this is a ticking time bomb. It's worse than this. I tell you, if you think Lagos is safe, you are deluded. You are living in very, very big delusion. Nowhere is safe in the country. This is not about demarketing Nigeria. Let's call it spade a spade. Let's tell the truth. Let's tell the truth. Things are not working. If there was security, you think I'm happy here coming to talk about insecurity every day? It saddens me. It's even bad for my mental health.
Exactly.
It's bad for my mental health. I go back every day. Yesterday night, I just had to turn off the news because what's on the news? Killings everywhere. You think I'm happy talking about it? I had to watch comedy to sleep yesterday. It's that bad. It's messing up with my brain. But something has to be done, and leadership needs to stand tall and do whatever it takes to stop all of this.
Exactly. Just wait for Mr. When Emmanuel Finney comes on. The entire front page of this day, from the masthead to the front page, is all about insecurity. The organized private sector, OPC, talking about the president and addressing it. Then the National Assembly. Just watch when Mr. Finney comes on and see what's on the cover of newspaper, this day newspaper of record, Nigeria's newspaper of record. It's really bad.
Well, aren't we back to that same basic issue defined in Section 14, Subsection 2 of the Constitution? Security and welfare being the main assignment of government. And once you drop the ball in those two regards, then you have a problem. And that's the problem, the big problem that we have in Nigeria today. Yesterday, National Assembly was agonizing over it. Governors of Benue State and Niger State, they've been agonizing over it. The governor of Benue State in one footage was talking about, 70 people dying in IDP camps. Internally displaced persons camps. So even when people have been displaced, they are also not safe. The ones that have not been displaced, they are also not safe. So 50 communities in Zamfara State taken over by Boko Haram, 42 communities in Niger State taken over by Boko Haram. So should anybody be surprised that even Lagos State has very serious security challenges? So how do we get out of this bind? How do we solve the problem? How do we make Nigeria safe for the people? Otherwise, we'll just be talking about the ease of doing business, attracting foreign investment, in a vacuum, because we have not provided that enabling environment under which everybody can feel safe and happy.
Well, I was quite baffled by Aliko Dangote's comments recently at that Peace Summit, saying that the media, when you report on insecurity, you drive away investors. I thought it was very strange that he should say that, because are the media supposed to suppress these stories or what? I really don't understand it. Right. The job of the media is to call attention, urgent attention in this case, to the happenings in the country. And like you just referred to that report that you brought about that video, talking about the Banana Island Turnbull axis, I objected to the use of the word invaders, but the point was well made, that, like I was saying that day, and I've been saying since, you cannot say you live in an ivory tower anywhere in Nigeria. This is not about any kind of silly schadenfreude, like, oh, even Ikoyi is not safe or anything like that. The point is that there is nobody that is safe in this country today. This is the other pandemic that we're facing, and it is an urgent problem. We are living in the middle of a disaster, and there appears to be no help in sight. Of all the responses that were possible, of all the options, the Lagos state government deciding to do this knee-jerk seizure of every motorbike does not make any sense to me. I'm sorry. It does not.
I agree. Because it's just knee jerk, as you said, and when we, again, as Rufai and yourself have said it, when we complain about these things, we've been talking about it. They don't seem to respond. But the moment an international body, because they know what it means when an international body comes out to point out these things, just look at them. I mean, this is what we've been asking for years. Look, the governor. Anyway, Governor Otu. Anyway, I know we're out of time.
Also
right.
add to the story that there were gunshots fired in that incident yesterday in Lekki. That there was some resistance.
Right.
Gunshots rang out in Lekki yesterday. I had somebody that was around there that called me that they are shooting because policemen want to take motorbikes in Lekki. Somebody had to call me running in panic. There were gunshots that rang out yesterday. That's what the nation has become.
And Governor Otum of Benue State, in that viral video, which I believe we covered on Newsnight, Arise TV's Newsnight show last night, he called for the people of Benue State to be allowed to carry their own weapons and defend themselves. The senator of Kogi State, Adeyemi Smart, said that the security has failed. He said the security in Nigeria has failed. It's gone. So at some point, something has to give where the people of Nigeria, if it has to take a constitutional amendment or something, if security outfits have failed, then what else? Everybody is every human being, for every citizen for themselves, they have to start protecting themselves. That's what the governor of a state called for in that viral video that we took on Newsnight last night. That really should be remembered by a lot of people with what he said.
Thank you so much, Rotos. We'll keep speaking. Moving on to business update now, Michael Wilson, joins us from London. Michael, great to have you. Good morning.
Good morning. It's shuffling the pack, really. That's all investors have been doing. Most of it's gone sideways. It's the big stuff. It's the FOMC meeting today in the United States. That's dominating everything. And provided they don't actually give us any surprises, then stocks will probably rise. US earnings continue to offer relatively impressive results. But if they're not stellar, then people are coming in and taking their money off the table. And I'll show you how that's been happening and how that's affected some of the big stocks later on. As far as Asia Pacific's concerned, South Korean consumer confidence up, retail sales up too. Thailand, again, I mentioned this because we're seeing a re-emergence of COVID there. This is the sort of patchy thing that's going on at the moment. Inflationary noise in Australia, not that much, very much reflecting what's happening in Japan, quite honestly. So all this Wall Street mood is sort of cautioning the markets throughout the world. A very sedate day, I think, yesterday, as far as the Dow Jones and Wall Street was concerned. The Nikkei up marginally, mainland China up very, very slightly too. Singapore up a little. But let's just turn to China, if we may now. So never mind the markets. What's actually happening despite political tensions? About 60 Chinese companies are planning to list in the United States. That's according to the New York Stock Exchange this year. However, cautious investors are piling into just a few of them. I think now we might be approaching sort of peak tech investment, peak SPAC investment, because people are looking at these kind of things and saying, are they actually worth the money, or they're worth the investment? Big questions. Anyway, we'll come on to that. China. Now, here's a good one for you. Reporting the first, or they're not reporting it actually, they're hiding it at the moment, but they may well report, nothing official, the first population decline in 50 years. Now, population is a very, very sensitive subject for China. In what was called the Great Leap Forward in the 50s, Mao Zedong's disastrous economic policy all those years ago caused the death of millions of people, and the relaxation of strict family planning has slightly affected things, but they are falling back. The problem about not having enough people is, number one, they've got a neighbor like India, which has an increasing population. Two, you get lack of consumer consumption if your population is falling. And thirdly, you have to cope with the rising demographic of the elderly and what to do with them. And I have said in the past, I do feel as though that's a major weakness as far as China is concerned. Maybe they will be reinforcing and putting some firm figures around that population decline, but those are the very heavy rumours going around the markets at the moment. So let's go on to the FOMC then. What kind of different outlook does it face? Well, it's huge, isn't it? Obviously, big economic rebound in the United States. Are we going to see the end of quantitative easing, or rather the tapering rather of quantitative easing? I think that Jay Powell was talking about an inflection point, wasn't he, as far as the economy is concerned last month. Now, will it change don't know about that really, but no one is suggesting it needs to change right now, but the markets may do it. Yes, for them, big yields, big bond yields surge yesterday. Talking corporately, and Microsoft shares 3% lower in extended trading yesterday. Nothing to do with the fact about their results. They were very good indeed. I won't run through the figures for you because you can look them up if you want to. I won't waste time with too much of the detail. But the fact of the matter is they're still 12% up on over the year. But because they weren't stellar, then people sort of mark them down. Google's parent company, Alphabet, reported huge revenues yesterday, particularly as far as YouTube ads were concerned, 6 billion versus 5.7 billion. And the revenue on Google up 34% on the same period a year ago. So despite the fact that it's doing rather well, do reflect what was happening a year ago. Of course, it was a big drop off in everything. So when you're seeing these results coming through, as I keep saying, it's worth actually looking back to find out what they're actually doing. JP Morgan is calling its bankers back to the desk in a rotational basis, rather. Largest US bank, Wells Fargo's doing the same. Other American banks are doing the same. It's quite interesting to contrast that with what's going a lot on the City of London. The City of London, the Square Mile, the traditional part of the City of London, is attempting to reinvent itself, creating homes in redundant offices, traffic-free zones over the weekend and so on, and events. So a lot going on there. As far as banks are concerned, a lot of them licking their wounds as far as Archegos was concerned. Remember that fund we were looking at, the total losses, looking at last week, total losses about $10 billion. Nomura has got rid of its head of prime brokerage. UBS has reported huge losses. Credit Suisse has, Morgan Stanley, 10 billion lost there. Let's talk now about the UK. A commission of the UK's most powerful executives is setting up, including Tesco, Vodafone, AstraZeneca. What are we going to do about post-pandemic Britain? It hopes that there'll be more to support UK industry, more to support apprenticeships, more to have local competitive industry hubs around the country, and a radical haul really of the way in which the UK trains people to actually work. British Airways is banking on wealthy tourists to get it out of its dumps at the moment until business travel resumes. What they're hoping is that people who are allowed away on holiday may well be getting away and getting sort of business seats, paying for premium travel and getting income for British Airways. Commodities, oil prices, signal gains really. OPEC plus production increases maybe next week, but there's no ministerial meeting, so they don't think as though they're going to do a great deal. So that's kind of kept the price of oil up. Higher US bond yields have eroded gold, as it does. They tend to work in separate ways. And here's the day ahead. So apart from the FOMC, President Biden in the United States will be talking about his first 100 days, about bipartisan support for the coronavirus infrastructure bill and all the rest of it. Fed officials will be, of course, telling us what they feel about things. I've talked about the FOMC. And Apple and Facebook are the big ones we'll be looking at. They're coming out after the bell and before the bell later today. Apple will be magic in its results. Apparently, that's what the market is actually looking for. Okay, if it's not, then the market will beat it down. That's your global view.
All right, Michael, great insights as always, and thank you so much. So I've got 3 questions today. Number 1 will be about BP. BP made a lot of money last year. I was surprised at the resurgence of BP. They made some money from natural gas and oil price stabilizing out and tilting out. I mean, what's the prospect for that? Secondly, will be the money, the likes of, what's it called now, YouTube, that's Alphabet, and some other companies are making very staggering amounts. In the first quarter, 55 billion in rev. In the first quarter, quite very astounding figure. I mean, is it that tech is the new oil now, as BP still makes money? And I want to know about this Robin Hood economics Joe Biden is doing, that is increasing capital gains tax about 39.5%, and he's using that to pay, for disadvantaged families. Is it adding up? Will it breed innovation? Will a lot of businesses come into America with that way? Because tax is always a sticking point with businesses.
Okay, BP first of all. Well, there's a company actually. Yes, of course, it is coping with the swap from fossil fuels and have we reached peak oil? Yes, and the rest of it. It will continue to make money because what it also does, of course, it refines and it sells retail as well. So there's all that still to continue. I suspect it probably will be making a lot of money in it. It will still be a portfolio thing, and also, of course, it issues dividends, which is very important for people's portfolios too. That is really the compound interest that makes you money as far as your investments are concerned, not the ups and downs of the day, but what the dividends are and whether you have a strategic long-term view. BP was one of the first major oil companies to take on the green energy thing, probably 15, 20 years ago, and it's continuing to do that. It's very difficult. I mean, the extraction of oil gets more and more difficult as places get more remote and time goes on. All the easy stuff has already come out. This is what the oil majors say, but I think it still will be a stalwart of people's portfolios for some time to come. As far as the tech companies are concerned, they do mint money. There's no question about that. However, I would just point out that we're going to be allowed to be more selective about the ads that are pushed our way. That's we as consumers. That'll affect things. That'll affect advertising revenue. It's not reflected in these figures yet, but it will be when we're looking at these, as I hope we will be in 6 months or even maybe a year's time. As far as big tech's concerned, it's going to face a lot of battles from administrations around the world. It will face battles from the Democrats in the United States. I mean, I know they have a marginal problem with their voting figures and the rest of it, and how how the administration is split in the Senate and House of Representatives. But I do feel as though they'll come under further battles at the moment. As far as the redistribution of capital gains tax is concerned, well, I mean, it depends what you want to do, doesn't it? The art of taxation, as somebody said, is like plucking a turkey, isn't it? You pull out the feathers to get the maximum amount of feathers with the least amount of pain. You're hoping the turkey doesn't notice you're pulling these feathers out. Capital gains tax may be one of those things, but you only really make big money out of taxation and pass it through and redistribute it by increasing income tax and also purchase tax or VAT or whatever you happen to call it. That's the way in which big money is made. So capital gains tax is quite interesting, but it's marginal.
Well, quickly, Michael, I was going to ask you about the situation in South Korea, where the Samsung, successors have been slapped with about, is it 10.8 million or billion dollars in terms of tax, over $1 trillion in the local currency. Why is that so high? And then you talked about the companies that are rushing to the U.S. To get listed, Chinese companies rushing to the U.S. to get listed on the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, considering the political tension between the U.S. and China, and also all the uncertainties in terms of that relationship. What justifies this? Profit?
Yes, in a word, it does. I mean, you're absolutely right. It is rather peculiar, isn't it, given the headline tensions that there are between the two companies. But if Chinese companies are looking at Jack Ma, for example, and the way that Ant Financial's IPO was pulled in China, the authorities don't seem to be particularly cooperative as far as large companies are concerned, and therefore, what they're doing is they're saying, well, let's go and list somewhere where we know we can actually list, and we will actually be making some money. As far as South Korea is concerned, very, very good for the family to do that, quite honestly. I mean, again, which way are they going to go? I would hope it's the government has actually asked them to do something like this, to pass on some of their riches to the less fortunate within their country. But then again, it is an engine, isn't it, of Southeast Asia? No question about that. All
right, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate you for your time, Michael, as always. We'll go for a quick break now. When we come back, we have Adesuwa Mora. We'll talk about COVID-19. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Morning Show right here on the Rise News channel. Let's go straight to it. COVID-19 pandemic is real. Adesuwa Mora breaks it down for us. Adesuwa, great to have you as always.
Thank you very much, Rufai. Good morning. Good morning, Tundun, and good morning, Dr. Bati. Well, more than half of the world's daily cases are now coming from India, as more countries pledge support while others impose flight bans to and from the country. But it is not only India that is seeing an increase. The number of global COVID-19 cases has risen for the 9th consecutive week, and deaths have increased for the 6th straight consecutive week, and that's according to the World Health Organization. But the map you're seeing is courtesy of the Johns Hopkins University. Well, let's come to Nigeria, where 156 new infections have been recorded in 11 states here in Nigeria. The largest infections came from Lagos and closely followed by Enugu State. A quick look at vaccination updates in Nigeria as well. 1.18 million out of the over 4 million doses available in the country have now been administered. The vaccination update: Akwa Ibom, Anambra, Sokoto, Bauchi, Taraba are some of the states with the lowest vaccination target percentage reported so far. And the chairman of the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19, Boss Mustafa, says this is below the projection of the government. At the latest briefing of the committee, he decried the level of vaccine hesitancy in the country. Meanwhile, the PSC on COVID-19 in Nigeria says it will issue a new travel advisory within 48 to 72 hours for travelers coming into the country from regions where there's a surge in COVID-19 infections. The man you have on your screen is Mukhtar Mohammed. He's the secretary of the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19, and he hinted that the government may impose travel restrictions on travelers from India, Turkey, Brazil, and South Africa, where we have seen a spike in infections owing to second wave and, of course, new variants. Now, you will recall that a team of Nigerian scientists had issued an emergency advisory on a ban of flights. You had the chairman of that advisory committee of scientists in Nigeria yesterday, the Academy of Sciences yesterday on the show. So any moment from now, we hope to get the travel advisory from the Nigerian government. It is coming as the Philippines, Belgium, and Australia join the growing list of countries imposing travel ban on India. And let me tell you more about India this morning. Now, the harrowing scenes from India continue to shock the world as the country struggles with soaring cases and deaths of COVID-19. The death toll in India has now surpassed 200,000, and crematoriums across the country are struggling to keep up with the grim task of accommodating piling bodies of COVID-19 deaths as they are surging in the country. And of course, it comes at a time when the WHO is warning that we should not blame just mutations of the virus as the sole cause of the tsunami of cases that have engulfed India in recent weeks. The global health body, that's the WHO, says India's deadly COVID-19 second wave is caused by a perfect storm of mass gatherings, low vaccination rates, and more contagious virus, as well as a rush to hospitals by people who are panicking when they could actually recover from the COVID-19 at home. And of course, currently, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has refused to call off the religious festival, and thousands of people are still partaking in the Kumela festival. So you wonder what exactly India is doing to ensure that they actually put a stop to what we're seeing. And if anybody thinks that this is just a problem for India alone, they need to think again. Finally, this morning, let me tell you that people in the US can now socialize outside without a mask if they have been fully vaccinated in the US. President Joe Biden gave the announcement at the White House yesterday, and he says this is another reason for people to get their jabs. President Biden says, you know, if you have been fully vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask, especially if you are alone. But if you are in a group of strangers, you still have to put on your mask. The update of this health advice comes as more than half of all adults in the US have now been vaccinated at least with one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, and about 29% of Americans have been fully vaccinated. And this data is according to the US CDC.
Well, in the US, 140 million people have received at least a dose. 250 million vaccine doses have been administered. And this is the great improvement that we have seen since President Biden assumed office on January 2020. And you know, of course, that he had promised that by July 4, he will expect that every American adult will have been vaccinated. So we've seen great commitment, we've seen great leadership, and that is why at the moment America can confidently climb the exit ramp with regard to COVID-19. But what is more important, in my view, is the fact that, well, there's still that restriction that, look, yes, you can, if you have been fully vaccinated, you may not use the mask if you are, outdoors, but if you are in a gathering, in a large gathering, maybe in a stadium, or you are watching a match or something, then of course, you still have to use your mask. But however, I think that there are bigger lessons from India, the story that you cited with regard to leadership. India, yes, you said it, they started conducting elections in about 16 states at a time when there was no certainty, as regards to the level. What is happening in India is a very dire situation. And as Anthony Fauci has pointed out, it shows that nobody is actually safe. No country is actually safe, according to Anthony Fauci, because you could have a situation where there could be an escalation. If you ease the lockdown, if you ease the restrictions too early, I hope that is not going to be the experience that we're likely to have in the United States. I hope not, but what is happening in India is really very disturbing. Hospitals, all the beds have been taken, no space. There is shortage of oxygen, but the good side of it is that there is global solidarity being mobilized in favor of India, the US, Germany, China, every country trying to rescue India from this situation in which it has found itself. But the more disturbing part, of course, is the variant, the mutant, the variant that has emerged in India, the B.1617. And that is why it's important that a country like Nigeria is considering restricting travels from places like India and Turkey and other hotspots in the world. It's a no-brainer. It's not a thing that the Nigerian government will be dancing around for days. They say they will take a decision within 48, 72 hours. They could have taken that decision yesterday to protect us.
Well, if I was President Biden, I would hold off on praising one's own stunning progress in the fight against COVID. We'd see what has happened in India. And I also want to make another point about India. The really disturbing reports about doctors and nurses being attacked by the family of people who have died of COVID-19, not channeling their grief to its appropriate quarters, but attacking medical health workers and vandalizing hospitals, such that security has had to be increased in certain hospitals. It's really disgraceful the way doctors are treated all over the world. It turns out it's just not a Nigerian phenomenon to fail to appreciate our doctors. It's hardly the fault of the healthcare workers who have been warning people. And now they're the ones under attack, not the politicians, not the individuals who chose themselves to attend large weddings or go and take a dip in the Ganges. It's completely wrong, and I have to make that point. Another thing I wanted to mention is a report that just came out of England, which I think is really good news, about how even having one dose of the vaccine halves transmission. We had wondered if at all the vaccine does anything to help with transmission, but it's now appearing that it might do, which is great news. It just goes to show that it's a novel virus. The information keeps coming out, information keeps changing, so we all really can never afford to be complacent.
Well, very quickly before we go, I was making the point about this travel advisory issued by the Nigerian authorities. Now, yesterday, the DG of the Civil Aviation Authority was talking about the Emirates lifting, resuming their flights. Well, maybe we should hold on that so that we don't have, contradictions between the presidential body and also other agencies of government. Okay?
All right. Great timing for that. Thank you so much, Adeso Amoro, as always.